everyone. Welcome back to another ASOTU Edge webinar. We're glad you're here today. We are going to be joined by our friends at vAuto. We're going to be talking about mining your misses to make deals and win inventory. Joining us is going to be Patrick James. He is the Associate Vice President of vAuto, and Adam Claiborne. He is the General Manager of Mike Shaw Kia. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
So unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that the used car department, having used car inventory, is at a premium right now. The requirement of making sure that you are winning trades, buying cars off the service drive, buying cars from the consumer, finding auction opportunities, and optimizing every possible acquisition channel to have a great used car inventory alongside your new car inventory, especially with inventory changing and not really sure what the manufacturers are going to do and when, and big box competitors like Carvana and CarMax and even other third parties attempting to get at that all valuable used car inventory is a big deal. And so we thought it would be great to bring in some of the experts themselves. So today I'm so excited to have a dealer and one of our partners at vAuto, and they have so much data on like, what are consumers doing? How are we interacting with them? And what can we do to find more of these cars? So if you are trying to figure out how to fill more of your used car inventory, hey, it's right now. We're going to do that right now. So let's go ahead and bring in Adam and Patrick. Gents, so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for giving a bit of your time to kind of share what you guys are doing. Adam, I want to start with you. Can you give us a little bit of background on Mike Shaw Kia, where you're at, what the store size is, and some of those general things?
Yeah, so Mike Shaw Kia, we're part of the Mike Shaw Auto Group. Used to be 7 or 8 stores. Mr. Shaw now has 2 stores, us here at Kia and our Toyota store in the same market, Corpus Christi, Texas. Both stores sell about 200 combined, new and used. And yeah, what else do you want to know?
That's it. That's good. And you're the general manager, correct?
Yes, sir.
Trying to watch everything that goes through. Awesome. Well, let me go to Patrick because I'd like you to set the stage. Always in sales, we've always been looking at the desk and looking at finance to find and capture car sales. But a lot of our focus hasn't turned to the opportunities we're missing to acquire cars. Where are you seeing the majority of missed opportunities, and why is it happening in our sales force?
Well, thanks, Kyle. It's a great question, and I think it's a little bit everywhere. I think historically it was like you got to have that save a deal meeting for the trade-in that was at the curb, that you had to get. And we've been preaching a multi-sourcing, that's a creative word, multi-sourcing strategy for some time now, right? That dealers have to. I really think since the pandemic and the disruptors getting and buying cars out of driveways, dealers kind of realize that they got to go to where the customer is, right? They can't wait for them to show up, on the lot with their trade-in and get one shot at them, and maybe they get 50% of them and, they're happy. That they got to get out in the market and be aggressive and get in front of everybody who's vying after these customers. And I'll give you a stat that to me is still pretty amazing. Our Kelly Blue Book arm does a lot of consumer research, and they said that really the average customer has about 3 offers on their vehicle before they even come to the dealership, right? Now, let's take it to the Gen Zers, the younger crowd, because they're a little more astute on the internet and a little more savvy at shopping. They have 4 to 6 offers, right? So wow. It's not unusual that we might be able to miss a trade here and there and miss an opportunity to get a car because it's just so readily available, right? To go get a number on my vehicle, in most cases, sight unseen. So I think that proposes a challenge for the dealers to say no longer can they sit there and say, well, we never miss a trade. We get them all when they come in here. We know that. In vAuto, we see, the best dealers, if they're really tracking the number right, maybe between 50 and 60%, what we call look to book or trade capture rate. So that means that 40% plus are out there floating. We show them that in the tool, that these cars are still available for sale. So, and the other thing that Kelly Blue Book told us was it's now taking over 100 days for a customer, a consumer, to kind of make their decision on where they're going to trade their car, let alone, buying the car as well, right? So they might pop into a couple different places and not do business and still be floating out there, kind of gyrating, if you will. And that's what I love about Adam as a partner of ours, Mike Shaw. He's, in my opinion, come up with an amazing process inside his dealership to say, we're going to go back after those folks because we're not going to all get them the first time.
Adam, what were the early insights when you were looking at your trade appraisal process and where trades were being missed? Where were you kind of like, that's something that I'm going to pivot and point toward as something that we need to look at as a success metric for us?
I guess early insights. I mean, sometimes it's the value of the car. Sometimes it's the lack of communication between the guy working the deal and the guy who appraised the trade. We'd like to own every car really right and take them all in with a bunch of margin in them. But at the same time, we want to win every car. And so I think it's finding that balancing act sometimes between where your used car department might want to take in a car and where I would be willing to go as the GM to get a car deal with a trade. I think that was a big piece of it. We're getting better at that as we review trades every day, and I put more money in them when necessary. But, I think just that communication is a big piece of it. And then I think, you still have shoppers that aren't ready to do business today. We want to force them all to do business today. And if the numbers are agreeable, will you buy this car today? But not everybody is going to follow your lead on that. And so I think there's opportunities there. Some of the other opportunities are just like reworking the deal, where maybe we thought we didn't have a deal because we were so far negative, but if we can put more money in the trade and we can squeeze some more down payment out of the customer, a day later, if we've done a good job making them fall in love with what they're looking to buy, sometimes going back at that deal, you find something that you didn't have the day before. And sometimes that comes from the customer when you follow up and you're willing to do more to put that deal together. Maybe they're willing to do more to help bring that deal home.
Yeah, I find it interesting that a lot of times different personas, even in a store, like you're the general manager and maybe you've got a desk manager and appraiser, kind of having a different viewpoint on what it takes to put together a deal. How do you, because you said, that recap is happening by you that day after. How do you, one, create that coaching moment, but also drive that back to where you have more wins in real time and not always have to do the recap? So I guess, like, what is that recap? What is that coaching? What does that conversation look like so that you've created a process for it?
I think that, it's easy to look at a trade and decide you can put more money in it. That part's really pretty easy, whether they're live or whether they're gone. Certainly, every dealership will tell you that we don't miss trades. We don't let them out on the street without all the money in the car. But the reality is, I don't think that's 100% true. So certainly we're trying to close that gap and make sure if we let the guy go shopping, or maybe it's just a situation where it's like, hey, I got to go talk to my wife and we'll be back later. And then we don't see him for a day. And what do we find out? That they're shopping, right? They don't always tell you if they're not happy with the deal. And so I think that's a piece of it. I think for us, what we're doing is basically, it's finding the gap between when you look at the appraisal, but then also looking at the CRM. And so for what we've started doing is, it's easy to identify, hey, you let this guy out at an 85% cost to market. We could have put more money in the car, or a profit time 9, and we could have put more money in the car. However you appraise cars, that part's the easy part. I think the hard part is, for us, has been closing the gap on making sure that, one, we've got accurate customer information in vAuto. We were not doing a good job pushing trades from the CRM to vAuto, which made it really difficult for me to go chase these opportunities down, because we'd have to run a DMV to go figure out whose trade this was so I could go find the customer in the CRM, right? It's kind of a simple process, but a broken process. The second piece is, I think, making sure that we're putting good notes on every car deal in the CRM that we work, but don't close that day. What was the gap? Why do we think this guy left? And, was it because he said he was, the husband or wife was going to talk to someone else and, bring them back? Or was it that they said they were hungry? Was it that, we didn't have the right car for them? Was it a credit issue? Whatever the scenario is, having good notes in the CRM makes this coaching process a whole lot simpler. So we've gotten much better at that, and we have customer information in vAuto, and we've got good notes most of the time in the CRM. That makes it easy for me. As I look up these trades, my first step is to go to the CRM and figure out why we didn't sell them a car.
Yeah.
If we've got good notes, then I can look at this and say, okay, then maybe the trade, sometimes it's not the trade, right? And sometimes you look it up and we already put all the money and then some in the car, and I frankly want to back a number down maybe. But I think that it's just a follow-up. It's a save a deal that is oriented on every deal with a trade. Because to me, that's where we need to grow our business. We're selling everything we can put our hands on. We just need more used car inventory. And I'd rather buy it off the street than, pay 98% cost to market at the auction for a car I've never seen before.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And the time to market is much faster. Patrick, one of the things that you said early was, the dealers and are starting to pay attention to this look to book number, right? Because it's starting to become a stat that people are talking about, and everybody's trying to raise their look to book. They want more of the cars. And so sometimes what that can do is create a residual impact that says to a salesperson or a manager, hey, don't push this into vAuto because I know I'm not going to win that trade. So don't even put it in there for the data, but for the data to create a bad scenario. But what that does is create a lying scenario. To Adam's point, it doesn't allow him to actually raise the used car inventory. Where are you seeing the best processes when it comes to connecting the right data so that you can go win more cars that maybe you didn't think you were going to win in the first place?
So Kyle, first has to ask, did you just recently travel with one of our vAuto performance managers?
I had one of the best back in the day when I was in the stores. So I had one of the best. Yeah.
What you just described is exactly a battle that they have every day. And honestly, it was just a week ago, I was traveling with one of the guys I trained with, because I was a performance manager when I started at vAuto, and we went into a group up in New York, and we were simply having the conversation about finalizing appraisals, right? Like you opened up a record, you have a VIN in there, and you put a number on it, and you just kind of walked away and hoped that it would disappear, right? In a couple of days, one would figure it out. There are ways, by the way, for us to look inside the solution and say, how many opportunities really were there, whether you finalize them or not? But this is a real important metric to measure. And we have brought it forth in a lot of reports in vAuto as of late, where really how many swings at the plate are you getting? Regardless if you're actually putting a number in, whether you're finalizing the number, but somebody made a decision to open up a record on a vehicle. That is an opportunity, whether it be sight unseen, whether it be talking to a broker, whatever it is, there is an appraisal. And
your girlfriend, your mom, your father-in-law just wanted to know their vehicle's value. It doesn't matter.
And
Put it in.
We went to the C-suite after walking into 10 stores that day, and all had varying levels of discipline in that manner. Walked into the C-suite, which would probably create a little problem for some of the users, but that's what performance management is all about. We said, hey, by the way, do you know what happens when they don't, finalize an appraisal in vAuto? And they're like, no. Well, that means that we can't track the VIN for 60 days and tell you if it in fact landed on another dealership website. Would that be interesting information for you to know, COO of said group? And he went, well, absolutely. I said, well, that's why we're walking around trying to get these guys to document their appraisals and get everything into the system. It's not to beat them over the head with it, but it is to really be able to, have continuous improvement. Wow, the cell phone came up and he was calling each store that we had been in where they're not doing that. So it is a discipline challenge. There's no doubt about that. And it takes leadership, like I'm sure Adam ensures in his store, that everybody's got to realize that you got to get the information in there. It's garbage in, garbage out kind of scenario. And you don't know what you don't know, right? It's got to be measurable, and someone's got to lead the charge on getting that in there. But yeah, they work the system a lot. You're spot on, Kyle.
So Adam, since you've kind of created this save a deal process when it comes to managing your missed appraisals, what impact have you seen down the line from like a used car acquisition or sales opportunity that's come out of some of these conversations and save a deals?
Well, I mean, certainly we can directly track deals that we didn't think were deals that we were able to get the customer back in and sell a car and trade for a car. I mean, we find those opportunities every week. Ideally, you're finding less and less of those as you get better at the process, right? And you start capturing more of those opportunities when they're in the store. But there's always going to be opportunities that get out the door. So I think the measurable is I can see car deals that I went back through and put a number on in vAuto and sent an alert through the CRM. And I use vAuto to kind of through their global search tool to be able to almost like a mini CRM for a pipeline of cars, right? And so I can see cars that we looked at on trade, that we looked at sight unseen, that we looked at on the service drive, and ones that we looked at as street purchases and KBB ICO. We've got a team of 2 buyers that are going out to people's homes when they find somebody who's willing to let us have a chance at making an offer on a street purchase within a reasonable distance. But all of those are opportunities and they don't all get closed today, right? And so we're using global search to go through and say, I go through it every day because my current boss, Mike Shaw, is a big believer that, save a deal isn't something you delegate to your sales managers and finance managers. They can talk themselves into the same reason it wasn't a deal yesterday, today. And so if you don't have someone else in there who maybe sees a bigger picture potentially because of your involvement in the entire store, not just in one department, you're not going to make different decisions, right, without that different perspective. So, Shaw and, a guy I worked for a little bit, Rick Moreno, same thing. It was a non-negotiable that the GM is involved in reviewing every trade every day, the ones we took in and the ones we didn't. And what the global search tool, I think, has allowed us to do is the challenge is it's like one thing to go through and just look at all your appraisals and say, hey, we put more money in this one. And I don't know, you send an email or whatever. But what it allows you to do is kind of comb those trades and say, okay, these 3 are never going to happen, right? We're so far apart or the credit is so bad or whatever the scenario may be. And maybe it's a trade I'm not even really that interested in chasing. It's a $500 tow in or something, right? Mm-hmm. But for the other ones, I can take those and use vAuto to say, okay, in global search, mark those lost. I'm not going to continue to chase them with my personal time, right? But then I've got others where I have the ability to say, these are ones that I know are coming in, right? We worked the deal, but the customer's coming in tomorrow to sign, and I'll mark those incoming so I don't just bump those arbitrarily. And then I have others where I'll go in and based on the CRM notes and I'll mark them active. And those are ones that I'm going in and I'm reappraising the car. I'm looking at the notes in the CRM and I'm sending alerts to the sales managers to get involved with the salesperson to figure out, hey, if I give another 1,000, another 800, another 1,500, whatever it is, let's reach back out and give them the great news and see if we can rework this car deal. So I think there's a ton of opportunities. It's just about having the pipeline. And like Patrick said, it's really easy to cook your look to book and make it 60% if that's what your boss wants to see. I think that you have to have somebody in the store that's willing to look at the truth of what your numbers are and then just try to get better. And so we're trying to capture every opportunity and look at it, even though it's going to, if you don't exclude your sight unseens like a lot of stores do, or exclude your street purchases like a lot of stores do from your look to book, it's going to drag your number down. And you have to be willing to look at that by channel and figure out how we're doing within each of those channels and then just try to get better. So that's what we're trying to do by spending the time every day, working the pipeline of trades through the tools we have with vAuto and Vin Solutions.
Yeah, well, I think what that moves, a lot of people misrepresent the IMS, which is the software type that vAuto and others are, as inventory merchandising system. And that's not all it is. It's an inventory management system. And what you're describing is actually managing your inventory, all the pipeline, the inbound, the outbound, the merchandising all the way through. And the pre management is just as important as managing it when it's in your inventory. And so I love the fact that you're kind of like creating this CRM-ish element out of the IMS, which is really neat. Patrick, if someone is looking to find this data right now when it comes to reporting in their vAuto suite and they're a vAuto user, where should they be looking to find the reports that map most closely to finding these missed opportunities?
Well, of course, I'm gonna put my performance management hat on and say, call your vAuto performance manager, because that's where they can coach you through this workflow. And Adam was gracious enough to let me videotape his workflow that he does between Vin Solutions and now he hasn't asked me for any royalties yet, so we'll see how this all plays out. But we have these workflows well documented to where someone can sit down with a dealer and say, listen, here are a couple of solutions that work really well together. You can move through those and create this discipline that Adam has done. And, we're willing and ready to help at any point. And if you can't find your vAuto performance manager, call me. I did it once before.
If you can't find your vAuto performance manager, you haven't logged into vAuto in a hot minute, because it's right there on the front screen.
Lower right-hand corner.
Lower right-hand corner. I know that, and I haven't been in vAuto in a couple of years. So, no, that's awesome. Adam, if a lot of general managers are extremely busy and they're trying to find these gaps in their day to do things that they feel like their finance manager or their used car manager should be doing. When you look at this as part of your day, how do you separate the time and how do you prioritize it? That's like, I know it seems like I just do it because Mike Shaw and before that John Moreno said like I've got to do it, but how do you prioritize it in your task list when it comes to the importance and why it gets done every day without miss, from like an operational standpoint?
I think I learned from different people all along the way, but I think you have certain things that you just have to make non-negotiables that they're going to happen every day, despite everything else that comes at you. And so for us, I strongly encourage all the other general managers out there to continue delegating it, just so we can win more of these trades that are out there. But
you're like, actually just start with the lot portal. They'll be great at it.
Right,
Let me know when you get that implemented. Yeah. I'll find those
Everybody
cars.
Can get together and tell each other why it wasn't a deal yesterday and it's still not a deal today, right? But for me, like we start our day at 8:30 with a sales meeting with all our sales staff, and we go over a couple things as well as a little bit of training and where everybody's tracking for the month. At 9:00, we do a recon meeting on every car that's in service, and that's a priority for me because I'll sell more cars if I have more cars photoed up and on the front line. And then as soon as that meeting's done, we jump in and we comb through our global search to look through our opportunities from the last 7 days. And first, we start with yesterday and what we did take and what we didn't. Then we look at the last 7 for anything that I've marked active that we're still chasing. And then we'll go back to the last 14 and see if those opportunities have been appropriately followed up with. Because it's one thing to ask somebody, hey, go chase this customer, but you still got to kind of inspect what you expect, right? So I go back through and say, hey, what did we do? Did anybody make a call? Was it an effective call? And so it is a tough deal to find the time. And believe me, there's days where it gets pushed till the afternoon, but I'm trying my best to make sure that it happens every single day. I try to make sure it's something that starts my day, because once you move on, you never get back, right, to what you were doing. And then we have a 2:00 call every Tuesday with our vAuto PM, Kirby Driver. And Kirby's job on that call, we get a half hour of his time, and I tell him, just call my baby ugly. Whatever you see, tell us the truth. We're willing to take it and try to get better, and then hold me accountable next week. Have we been doing what we said we're going to do? And Kirby's a great accountability partner for us.
I think that's a huge thing when I think about anyone looking to get better is understanding that defense is not a mechanism that improves results, right? Where you just said, like, call my baby ugly. If you walked into every vAuto training call or every vendor X call with a defense mechanism put up, you wouldn't be looking for the opportunities to get better. And so I love that positioning that you have there. Patrick, I'm going to harken back to something that you said at the very beginning, because I think it's super important and I don't want people to miss it. But you said that currently the average is about 3 offers that someone has in their hand. And as the younger you get, it can get up to 6 offers. The way the math works in my mind is if 2 out of those 3 people that appraisals are not going to win that car, that means an average of 33% look to book should be pretty average. But in younger demographics, it may be even more. And so your look to book could be lower if you are in fact putting a number on every possible car that you can, finalizing those appraisals and making sure that you have the opportunities at least available to you, and understanding that used car inventory is of a higher priority than your book rate, right? Does that math make sense? Are you seeing that played out in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, and you mentioned the gaming earlier, right? Nobody wants to ever admit that they're average, but I'm telling you, we see a lot of average, dealers inside of vAuto every day. I mean, the average is, if you're really clicking on all cylinders and documenting all of your appraisals, you're only winning about half of them. I mean, let's just be honest. And again, maybe it makes it easier to consume as a dealer and with a little ego involved when customers are taking over 100 days to decide where they're going to trade their car. Like I said, you're not going to win them all that day. And when you start to talk about service drive customers, I was just at a dealer in New York. I've been in New York a lot lately anyways, but it was upstate New York, and they had a really strong service drive harvesting process. And they told me, I thought, wow, you're just pulling them right out of the service drive and throwing them into reconditioning and putting them on the front lot. And they're like, oh, no. It's like maybe 10% of the wins that they get out of the service drive, actually, they flip it into a car that day. They're making an offer. Wow. They're presenting it to them. They're doing the follow-up just like Adam's doing and saying, hey, listen, what'd you think? Did that number excite you? Is that something that you've been, well, now that I went home and, now that I just spent $1,500 on my car, you know what? Maybe it is time, to do something. And the cool thing that they did, I'll throw a best practice out here, is they had a great process for that bill, right? They literally said, here's the deal. We'll write you a check back for that $1,500 that you just spent in our service department. You'll be able to use that towards your down payment. So they actually almost promoted people kind of thinking about it a little bit, getting out of the service drive, and then calling them up. But it was all about the follow-up that got them excited about coming back. Less pressure on trying to make them make that decision today. So I think when you factor in all of that and the way the consumer's thinking today, it doesn't surprise me. I think your stats are spot on, and we shouldn't be ashamed of those stats.
Yeah, imagine you have 3,000 customer ROs and you're closing that at an average rate of 3%, which is actually high on service drive pickups. Like if you're putting every single one of those cars in vAuto every single month or in your IMS, like that's the type of pace that you want to get, because then you're giving as many offers as you possibly can to the public. Adam, Patrick, you've been wonderful today, giving the industry a lot to think about. Adam, congrats on putting a lot of these processes in place, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be a success for you. But thanks for joining us here on our Edge webinar.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us. If you want to check this out again or send it to a friend, you can go to our website, ASOTU.com, click on media, and drop down to webinars. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.